using the word fine and coarse. And then, of course, it's a scale. So it ranges from extra fine to, extra coarse. And then you have your curl patterns, which go from straight to tightly coiled. And so when choosing and selecting products, how can I simplify it? When you understand the texture and curl pattern of someone's hair, and to even go deeper than that, what that means in terms of the strength of that hair, the porosity of that hair, then it helps you to determine what kind of product you can recommend. And so, I've been doing hair for years, 10 plus years, and I think also when you have experience with multiple textures, multiple curl patterns, then you start to learn what works best for those textures and curl patterns. So it's a combination of understanding the anatomy and physiology of a hair strand in regards to texture and curl patterns. But then also comes with the experience of working with those different curl patterns and textures with different people.
Okay, so you mentioned curl pattern a lot. So if somebody's just going natural, so they've had their hair relaxed for a while, how do they figure out what their curl pattern is? Do you think it's just best to go into like a place and kind of ask them what your curl pattern is, or is that something they can figure out on their own?
I think there's so many resources online, and I do find that a lot of consumers use the typing system, the hair typing system, and they find it easy. But I think it's best to get a professional's opinion because the hair typing system, I think that it is another form of, what's the word? I can't think of the word right now, but the issue that we have within the Black community when it comes to our skin color. And I say that to say, no one wants their hair to be a 4C. And so, because no one wants their hair to be a 4C, oftentimes women who may actually have 4C hair, which is really coarse and really tightly coiled hair, they will type their hair as like a 3C because they don't want their hair to be a 4C, if that makes sense. Because it's seen as negative, and I don't know if that makes sense. But all that to say, you can find it online, but I think it's always best to consult a professional so that you can make sure that what you think your hair is, it actually is.
All right, and then I know like after reading a couple articles, I know like when people transition, they usually go and do the big chop. How do you transition without doing the big chop?
Well, one, you're going to trim little by little. And the best thing to do is you don't have to always go into protective styling, which means using extensions or added hair, because not all women want to add hair. So if you don't want to go into protective style, which would include, some type of braid style or twist style, whether it's individual braids or twists or even like a cornrow or flat style, using extensions, I recommend wet setting the hair. And I recommend wet setting the hair because for women who are transitioning and they don't want to cut off all the processed or relaxed hair, what it does is it creates a curl, a temporary curl in the hair, but it, one, allows the woman to transition and see themselves with this added volume in the hair because, of course, straightening the hair doesn't have any volume. And so it gives a different silhouette for the woman to adjust to when she looks at herself in the mirror. And then as the hair is growing out, because the hair is so fragile, which is why a lot of women opt for the protective styling because it gives you a break from manipulating the hair. But when the hair is growing out, the hair is fragile between your natural curl pattern and the hair that's really relaxed. And so in keeping it wet set, then it reduces how often you manipulate it, and it allows you to trim little by little until you get rid of all the relaxed skin.
Right. And then I also read on your bio that you did some research between the correlation of healthy hair and then happiness. Can you explain to me a little bit about what your findings were with that study?
Um, I know what you're talking about too. I would say overall, that was a couple of years ago. But overall, our hair is so intricately tied into identity and how we present ourselves to the world. And a lot of the studies, I didn't personally do the study. I actually just kind of did research on existing studies. And in the study that I've read, self-esteem was really tied into hair and how people perform and how they felt about themselves. And so I think even without having read a study where they were finding that the majority of women whose hair was done, they performed better, whether it was in school or at work, and they felt more confident than someone whose hair was not grown. You're a little bit more self-conscious and not as confident. I think in general, we always feel that way. We have conversations in social circles where if your hair is not done, we laugh about it, we joke about it, but you may not wear your cutest outfit. You may not even go out and be involved in that social circle. So I think the study themselves, when I read them, it just confirmed what we already know, but it's always nice when studies are done to confirm what we discuss amongst ourselves.
Right. And then do you feel like there's any, because I know with natural hair, there's kind of like a lot of social stigmas in the workplace. How do you feel that like natural hair fits into the workplace? Do you think it's something that's being more accepted today?
Oh yeah, definitely. Natural hair is definitely being more accepted in the workplace. I think that our society is evolving, and the more that we see Black women wearing their natural hair in the media, and the more that we're accepting it, the more that society as a whole is accepting it. There's still a paradigm shift that has to take place because the ideology of beauty in our country goes so deep and it's so steeped in history that it's going to take a long time. But there have been a lot of changes, and I think the time that's going to take really starts with us as black people, because I find that at least the stories that I hear from my clients, that if they do receive any type of criticism about their hair in the workplace, it's typically from other Black people. We find, and I know I find it as well, that other ethnic groups actually find our hair fascinating and they're intrigued by it. So that paradigm shift really has to take place within us more so, and I think the more that we accept it, the more that we become confident in it and love it, then the more greater society as a whole will grow or continue to grow and be comfortable and accepted.
Right. And then the next question I have for you are like, what are some tips on like how to keep your hair healthy, like when it's going natural, like when you're transitioning?
The first thing that comes to mind is I always tell my clients to decondition their hair. Deconditioning the hair is really important, especially when you're transitioning, because you have to retain as much moisture. If the hair dries out, and again, if you have a big chop and you're doing the trim by little, and the hair is already dry, the hair doesn't process and relax is really porous, meaning it can't retain moisture. And then we go back to the discussion about the fragility of the strand at the point where the natural hair grows out. So deconditioning is important to not only reinforce the structure of the hair strand during the transition period, but to also replenish moisture on a regular basis because guardrail strands will break and the hair is already fragile in a transitioning state. And so deconditioning is important. And then making sure that the hair is lubricated on a regular basis, meaning using an oil-based product on the hair. So deconditioning and regular lubrication, moisture and lubrication, those are the keys to keeping the hair healthy. And and then most importantly as well, as I mentioned in the previous question, reducing how much you're manipulating the hair during a transitional state. The less you manipulate it, the less breakage you're likely to see. And so, again, we talked about the styling. The wet setting or the texture styles will allow the hair to just grow out uninterrupted.
Right. And then do you think it's better to, like, when you're transitioning, do you think it's better to kind of like chop little by little or just to do the big chop, or does it kind of depend on who you are and what your hair type is?
It depends on the person. Not everyone wants to walk around with short hair. And honestly, when we talk about face shape, not everyone looks good with short hair. So it really goes by a case-by-case basis.
Okay. And then the last question I have for you is, like, is there anything that you thought that I would ask you that I didn't ask you, or anything that you care to share about natural hair?
No, you know what? I would say I didn't come into the interview with any expectations. I would say, for the questions, no, but I would say in general with natural hair, I would just share my personal sentiment that I'm really happy and excited to see more people accepting natural hair as an option. And I say that because natural hair has always been around. There have been women who've been wearing their natural hair for years. But I think, again, with the ideology of beauty, which primarily is an ideology of whiteness, that the straighter and longer your hair is, the more beautiful you are, has prevented a lot of black women from accepting their natural hair, or not even accepting it, or choosing it as an option. So it goes back to the word option. And so now that more and more women see it as an option where they don't just wear their hair natural when they're at home or when they're going on vacation, but that they can actually wear it in corporate circles. They can feel sexy with it. They can go out with it. I think it's really beautiful, and I think knowing that there's a new generation of young black girls that are growing up and they're able to see more images of women who look like them and their hair is also like them is a really positive thing. And I think that the more we grow and the more we do that, I can eventually see the tide turning. And I think it's great. And my business, Mahogany Hair Revolution, the word revolution, we think of it as, it is defined as a drastic, far-reaching change. And so when I chose that part of my business name, it's because I did do it in a time where it wasn't popular. And I felt that it would be a drastic, far-reaching change at the time when I launched my business, because the majority of women were still relaxing, and straightening their hair and wearing straight hair weaves. But also, the word revolution can also be defined as a full turn, 360 degrees. And so it also goes back to what I said earlier about us going back, coming back to full circle to who we are. And I think it's wonderful.